The summer of 2020 was the time when I first got into anime. It was around that same time when I had the pleasure of experiencing Clannad for the first time. Looking back on it, all I can remember is that I was a broken mess by the time I finished watching it. It was the first time I ever cried while watching a piece of fiction, and I quickly understood that this was an experience that I won't forget in a long time to come, if not ever. It wasn't long after that when I somehow searched and stumbled my way across a certain anime movie called A Silent Voice. It is difficult for me to verbalize or to explain the emotions which remain attached to that once-in-a-lifetime experience. A feeling that is just as hard for me to understand as it was a few years ago. It would not be a stretch to say that the reason I make these videos today is because of the existence of those works of art that impacted me so profoundly and in some ways changed the course of my life. But throughout these life-changing experiences, there was one thing that remained common. These two entirely separate stories that I now felt so strongly towards were created by the same anime studio, that being Kyoto Animations. The kind of influence and impact that Kyoto Animations has had on so many of us cannot possibly be explained in a few sentences, and for a good reason as well. Kyoto Animations is a name synonymous with spectacular animation, captivating visuals, and incredible stories that are all held together by a staff of individuals that have genuine love for their each individual craft that has made Kyoto Animations the most beloved anime studio out there. But before all the love from the community, before becoming the greatest at their craft, before A Silent Voice, and even before Clannad, there was an anime made by KyoAni that not many people remember, but it is the anime that started it all. Kunisaki Yukito is in search of something far away from his reach, for which he travels from place to place while living off of his earnings made by his puppet show. After he arrives in a small town and sleeps on the concrete floor close to a beach, upon waking up, Yukito is greeted with the sight of a girl landing majestically next to him. Misuzu is a timid and shy girl who surprisingly opens up to Yukito and even invites him to her house for a place to stay, to which the hungry and homeless Yukito ends up agreeing. Although Yukito remains pretty suspicious of the welcoming nature of Misuzu towards a total stranger like him, as the duo begin to roam around town and spend their summer confronting the personal issues of many of the side characters including each other, Yukito soon finds himself growing fonder of Misuzu, and he realizes that the thing he has been searching for this whole time shares a distorted connection with Misuzu. But Yukito's growing attachment towards Misuzu serves as a double-edged sword for both him and the audience once we realize why Misuzu spends her time all alone. Air is a tale spanning across 1,000 years. It is a story of loneliness, grief, loss, and of the relationship between a mother and their daughter, which are explored to their literal extremes through the use of supernatural forces outside the control of the characters on screen. The central theme of Air revolves around family, whether it be the story of kids who lost their parents, or parents who cannot come to terms with the loss of their children, or the unshakable bond forged through the power of love between Misuzu and Haruko. Haruko isn't actually Misuzu's mother. She took Misuzu in her care when she was still a child, but they practically lived their own separate lives in the same household. Both you as the viewer and Yukito find this pretty odd at first, but the show continuously hints at Misuzu's inability to remain in company of others. Misuzu is forced to stay alone, or else she might end up hurting herself and anyone else that decides to get involved with her as a result. But even with that knowledge, both Haruko and Misuzu yearn for each other's company, however painful it may prove to be. I tried long and hard to describe and capture the essence of Air, but I think the following words spoken by Hiratsuka Shizuka, the teacher of one of my favorite fictional characters ever, are enough to convey the message.
It's impossible to never hurt anyone. Simply just by existing, we'll unconsciously manage to hurt someone. They do it when they are living and even still do it after they've died. They do it by getting involved. Even if they try not to get involved, they'll still hurt someone.
If getting involved with others will inevitably bring harm to them, do you decide to isolate yourself from this world and push away your loved ones? Or do you stay close together knowing the consequences? Do you decide to choose an eternity of isolation or a short-lasting moment of happiness? This was the theme of Air that really stood out for me, and the fact that the show spends majority of its runtime on physically showcasing this very philosophy that Oregairu once taught me only made this experience even more special for me. Air has this warm and comforting atmosphere around it. The characters of Air are charming, the sceneries feel lifelike, and the comedic bits really get you when you least expect them to. It's only when the soundtrack composed by Jun Maeda takes the center stage, combined with that bittersweet ending, that it really hits you like a truck, leaving you behind with conflicting emotions, most probably that of joyful sadness. And that's also the best way I can describe this anime in one word. Air is an experience that can best be summarized as bittersweet. I would be lying if I said that Air didn't have its fair share of noticeable flaws. I would be dishonest if I said that I understood everything about the story. And I won't act like my personal feelings towards Air weren't in some ways influenced by my love for both Clannad and Kyoto Animations. I cannot speak for others, I cannot be the most objective, and I certainly cannot be the best while describing a work of art. But in this instance, the least I can do is speak of my own experience with this anime and the reason I decided to give it a chance in the first place. Any of the flaws in the story, the writing, or the characters caused by time constraints do not matter to me, as they are all overshadowed by everything that Air manages to deliver on, which includes that classic Kyoto Ani atmosphere of warmth and comfort that fills me with immense joy, and an ending arc that slowed things down to focus on the relationship of a family of two unrelated yet close individuals, which became the best part of the entire story for me. But even that isn't where the true importance of Air lies, at least for me. From the moment I pressed play on the first episode of Air, a sudden wave of nostalgia washed over me. It was the OST, the character designs, those big bright eyes, the opening sequence visuals, and the overall atmosphere that I was all too familiar with. Every little detail from its art style, animation, characters, sound design, and direction reminded me of Clannad. Air was the first ever in-house production for Kyoto Animations, and it served as the directional debut for Ishihara Tatsuya, the same person who went on to direct many of Kyoto Animation's works, including Clannad. Air was also the first time that Naoko Yamada would work on a project as the key animator. The same Naoko Yamada who went on to direct an episode of Clannad, the entirety of K-On!, before directing the greatest work of art I have ever had the pleasure of viewing, in the form of a silent voice. So as flawed as the story might be for some, Air is the anime that lets me look back at the early days of those same creative individuals who would go on to create several works that heavily influenced me and millions of others. This was the beginning for some of the best creative individuals out there who went on to work on stories that have changed and distorted the lives of countless people in a good way. The beginning for one of the greatest anime studios ever created. The beginning of something truly special. Air was the anime that served as the beginning for Kyoto Animations.